How can you create advertising campaigns specifically related to Google Ads? You have two ways to create campaigns. We will now look at creating Performance Max campaigns. These smart campaigns can be launched immediately because they already collect information from your website, just like other advertising campaigns. The only difference is that they use Google's artificial intelligence. How can they be created? The fastest way for you is, of course, to easily and efficiently create it using the Google Channel plugin. Click Create Campaign quickly and effectively. We are initially taken to the Setup Campaign section, and here we have a comprehensive set of settings. And basically, we would definitely go through the set of settings in any case when creating campaigns. Why? I always recommend creating the first shopping campaigns with Merchant Center because, firstly, you won't encounter any bugs, errors, or other issues when you create them directly in the Google Ads interface. The second reason is that setting up such a company is really very quick because, essentially, all you need is, the marketing and ad campaigns sections. In the next Merchant Center, this will also be a separate section called Ad Campaigns. I have continuous setup here, and it essentially leads to the same block of this information that will essentially be here. It will just go through ad products again because they will take some time to load and migrate, but the essence will be roughly the same. Why do I like this method of creating a campaign? Because it does not require you to make additional edits to the object. We will get to that shortly. Creating creatives in text, and so on. This company will be more than enough for you to simply start smart shopping ad campaigns in any country in the world without any problems. How do we create them? You have several fields here. There are only 4. This is to select products by feed label. It's just one feed. If you are using multiple feeds, this setting is relevant. You can skip it. You can always filter some products in Google Ads. Next, make sure to select the correct identifier for your Google Ads account. That is, it should match the Google Ads account with the number you will see here in the top right above the email. This is very important because sometimes different Google Ads get mixed up and all this information gets spread around. After that, make sure to set the daily budget. The starting daily budget for most niches is typically around $9 to $10 on average, which means that you can freely set it. You can set it lower depending on the country where you will be launching, but usually $10 is the standard minimum just to start showing ads. For me personally, I set it to the equivalent of 400 hryvnias, and then there's the campaign name. By the way, here Google recommends setting it a bit higher. You can follow the recommendation or set an equivalent of approximately $10. Here, as you wish. One of my recommendations is to specify the types of products that will be included there, or any additional criteria, so you understand what kind of products are in this Performance Max. Why? Because I have only one product item here. You might have 100,000, you might have 1,000, you might have 500. If you are going to create Performance Max campaigns for categories or with goals and bidding strategies, it is best to name these campaigns. Naming campaigns Performance Max 1, 2, 3 is not logical and does not clearly reflect the structure of your account. But you can leave it like this. I create campaign, continue, and while the verification is in progress, there's this whole story with Merchant Center moderation. But if we just simply passed everything we do, we simply reload after we clicked Create Campaign in our Google Ads account. And when we reloaded the page in the Campaign section, Companies, we already have the full name of the company we created, the budget we set. What do we need to do next? Initially, you must either pause this campaign through Enable Post, or you can leave it as it is, but make sure to adjust its settings. This is very important. Click the pencil icon and then Edit Campaign. Go to the Settings section, and then What exactly are we editing here in the settings section? Be sure to adjust locations because in Merchant Center, it is automatically created for all countries and territories. There is a golden rule. If you have multiple countries to target, place one country in one campaign. This way, you'll have more flexibility in controlling the results and budget allocation, as one country may consume the budget without generating sales, while another may generate sales. You won't be able to scale this result, so it's advisable to choose the locations correctly. Moving on. Languages. It all comes down to several factors. The first one, the language that is spoken by your buyers, your customers, or the fundamental language that is used on your website. Because there are countries not very friendly with the English language, such as France. There are, for example, certain audience segments in particular specific communities, such as Latinos in the United States, who might not even know English. Or the same Brooklyn with a Russian-speaking audience who probably do not know English, living in a closed community. Or, for example, take the Netherlands, where English is like a second native language, so there is no problem running campaigns in two languages. Therefore, it all comes down to the languages your audience speaks. If you need everything indiscriminately, then you can set it to all languages. But I always recommend choosing only the languages spoken by your potential audience. The next setting, which I recommend turning off, but you can leave it on if you prefer. This is the automatically created assets section. Text assets, final URL. You simply need to exclude a specific URL from your site if you leave these 2 points. What are these URLs? These are primarily links to various blogs, news policies, shipping policies, and other refund policies, such as, for example, these are the kinds of pages from which you don't want keywords to be collected, because essentially this section of settings is responsible for such types of advertising campaigns as dynamic search ads. This, of course, might be something roughly speaking some kind of maybe math for you. Difficult. Is chemistry difficult or math? I've forgotten Russian. It could be something complex, like physics or chemistry, but conditionally. This type of campaign can capture keywords for search campaigns and ads from different pages. Therefore, if you want to set this up, it is advisable to include pages in the search. I, for example, prefer to always turn them off for the first launch. I can add them later. I can create a duplicate of this campaign, test everything in it, and the parallel history is not essential. Moving on. The next extremely important settings are definitely very crucial goals. If our goal is purchases, we must definitely choose purchases. It is advisable to do this. Why? Because you need to understand, Performance Max uses advanced and sophisticated artificial intelligence that builds predictive models to accurately and precisely find your customers. It has a specific and comprehensive set of configurations. If a store, we start the campaign from the Merchant Center for purchases. So, we need to choose a global goal, and that is purchases. So, the settings should be clear and correct. Let's move on. We either need to adjust the bidding strategy we have or reduce our budget. But in this case, if we are starting with a small advertising budget, our task is to adjust our strategy because initially, advertising campaigns are launched to maximize conversion value. This is not a bad strategy, but it has one drawback. As soon as you start getting your sales and begin increasing your advertising budget, because your scaling point will be the budget, your profit will be consumed. Because this strategy, in essence, does not focus on your return on investment. Even if the income is just a few dollars higher than the expense, Google will consider that it has executed its bidding strategy very successfully, meaning it is very effective. Therefore, it is advisable to set constraints in target RAS here. How do you set it? There are several strategy options that you might consider. The first option is to start with something small as a starting point. If we are launching in American and European markets, we might start with a 50% option, and over time you'll increase this profitability. The second option is when you aim for average weighted values. They are different in each country, so I cannot list all the target RAS for each country. You can start with 150% in others, with 200% or even 500% profitability works very well. So, just so you understand, you will always have to play around with this value to find the optimal balance for yourself. In this case, I am showing you a strategy option where you don't excessively limit your bids while still participating in a profitable auction and appearing for great queries. At the same time, you will control your final profitability by setting a budget limit, such as, we are starting with a very small amount. It's $400, which is roughly equivalent to $10 for me. Even if I leave it here in the state, it's a decent amount to start with. Remember, all these bids can be adjusted, the budget up and down, and profitability accordingly. So, we have covered the absolutely basic and essential important settings, without which you shouldn't start Performance Max at all. Next, what do we need to do? When I explained why it is indeed possible and very necessary to launch these campaigns with Merchant Center, it is because of this section called the Assets group. Usually, when we create Performance Max through the Google Ads interface, there is a very lengthy procedure involving the creation of these objects, assets. You need to provide images, texts, and other elements. In most accounts, as of the time I am currently recording this video, it is right now November 10th. Only in the States have they rolled out a full update on assets, where your artificial intelligence, that is, Google's artificial intelligence, automatically fills in all these fields based on your URL. You just enter the final URL and all these fields are populated, and not in all advertising accounts. We can show you an example this can be generated. This story covers AI. I will show you how to fill this out manually, step by step. If you are creating advertising campaigns here through this Google Ads interface, you would click on Create Campaign, New Campaign, select the correct conversion. We do not need this. Continue. Performance Max Campaign, your Google Merchant Center, name it. Go through these long steps. There are 50 steps. Go further. Geography settings, languages, remove these unnecessary things. Go even further, and here we would finally reach the essence. Without them, we wouldn't have progressed in creating the company, but it might give you an error, meaning it won't let you proceed. If it lets you proceed here, it might not let you. Tornado centers are formed to avoid these elements. We'll cover them. In what cases should they be added? If you want to start with a strategy not focused on value, not on maximizing conversion value, but on maximizing conversions, then in that case, it is advisable to add them. Or if you have services or some type of advertising campaigns where you have lead generation instead of purchases through the cart. Here you have the opportunity to add images. Please feel free to add them. Take them from a sheet, preferably add your own, logos, videos if you have them, and you can also add text. I don't have anything to offer here yet because my website is still completely empty at the moment. Long headlines, descriptions, these are all the texts in your business that you definitely add, so there are no problems. This is already such a long stage. Sometimes the interface glitches, sometimes it doesn't fill in all these things, sometimes it gets messed up. That's why I suggest you create a campaign directly from the Merchant Center interface. It's very easy, quick, and without problems. This remains in the projects, so it won't be active in any way. Another option for settings that you can focus on is signals. If you have gone through the object, you set it manually, meaning there are also signals. What are signals? They are currently a conditional element of settings that can provide a primary guide for the company on which audience to target. There are several sections here covering different aspects and nuances. First, there are search themes. Here, your task is to set the keywords that people might use to search for your products. This is a really cool feature. It just came out of beta for all accounts. These are the exact queries that artificial intelligence will use to predict model building for finding your audience. There are a few more additional sections, such as your data. Your data includes remarketing lists and segments from Google Analytics or the same dynamic remarketing and other related data. There are also Google, Pinterest, and detailed demographics. Here you can search for anything, including live events like getting a dog, selling a house, getting married, and so on, a variety of different interests. There is demographics. The household income block is still relevant, but for other countries, it is not relevant. Well, basically, there is a large set of settings that you can use to further clarify to the system what your product is about and who to target first. Remember, this signal is not a precise, limited audience that Google will target. It is a guideline, but it will still take a broad approach. Do you need to set a signal initially? No. If your feed is well structured, has basic attributes, and is well optimized, then you can launch your performance max without specifying signals. You need to specify signals only if you have run your performance for at least a week. And you can already see some various nuances in the different insights and additional reports. They won't load for me at the moment, so you'll need to browse through these reports to see what's happening with your advertising campaign at this very moment. Here, there will be a section on search terms and queries. There will also be information on audiences, and you will see whether your performance is directed there or not, based on auction statistics in search and shopping. You will generally see if you are competing in the auction you intended and whether your competitors are there or not. In such a case, it makes sense to set a signal. In other words, you can start this campaign without a signal, and it will still work quite well. It all depends on how well your feed is structured and formatted. That is, how informative it is, how good the title is for this product listing, the name, and overall. You see, here I have the description of the item. It is filled with all the attributes that are available. You need to fill all of this out. That is, you need to complete all these sections without any issues, undoubtedly. You directly Google the FIDA Merchant Center specification request and go through all the attributes that might apply to your product listings, filling them all out. How to fill them out? You will have to manually add them to your feed using supplemental feeds. But this is already a section on feed optimization in Merchant Center. Another important setting, which I haven't mentioned yet, but it may not be relevant for all stores. You must fill out the Refunds section, your refund policy. For most stores, it needs to be completed. For Ukraine, it's not required, but advisable to fill it out as it can be pulled into the advertisement. One more crucial detail to keep in mind is that if you are planning to launch your application or service in the United States, it is absolutely essential to ensure that you configure your text settings appropriately for this specific region. If you choose Specify My Own, here I have it like this. For the States, you basically need to select All automatically without any manual intervention and then save. For the States, this is a relevant story. For all other countries, it is not relevant. That's it. We have established the goals. They are in place. We quickly created the Merchant Center, passed the verification. I have shown how to create advertising campaigns. If needed, you can adjust, modify, or do other things with them. Now, if we see that our account cannot yet be displayed because our products are under review in the Merchant Center, it is advisable to take this into account. This means your advertising campaign will not be fully set up yet. And of course, don't forget that you always need to enter your billing information. You need to provide your payment information because without it, you won't be able to launch ads, there will be no expenses, and the advertising account won't be funded, resulting in no impressions or clicks. So, keep this in mind to ensure you don't forget about it. The advertising account is funded within Google Ads, a key detail. Without it, you won't be able to advertise, the final step. Google will even remind you that you haven't added your important and necessary payment information. Basically, this is the basic set of knowledge you need to launch these very smart shopping ad campaigns on Shopify with Performance Max, which Google itself highly praises and which indeed truly perform the best on the market. That's all from me.